The shuttle landed on the moon of Varus 7, just as the twin suns were setting. Megan Cole pressed her face against the window and watched the sky turn purple and gold. She had never seen anything so beautiful in her 17 years of life. Back on Earth, she had grown up in a small town where the biggest excitement was the county fair. Now she was about to attend the most famous school in the entire galaxy. The Galactic Integration Academy was a place where young people from 100 different alien species came to learn together. They trained to become leaders, soldiers, diplomats, and scientists. The buildings were made of crystal that caught the light and threw rainbows across the ground. Towers reached up toward the stars, like fingers trying to touch heaven. Megan was the only human in her class. Earth had only joined the Galactic Compact 12 years ago, and most aliens still thought of humans as primitive creatures. They saw Earth as a small, unimportant planet filled with beings who had barely learned to travel between stars. When the lottery had chosen Megan to represent humanity at the Academy, her mother had cried with pride. Her father had hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. Now, standing alone on an alien moon millions of miles from home, Megan wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The other students stared at her as she walked through the entrance hall. A group of Tovani blocked her path. They were tall and muscular, with green or blue scales covering their bodies. Each one had 4 arms, and they looked like they could crush her without even trying. Their leader was a male named Kethral. His scales were the color of emeralds, and his yellow eyes looked at Megan like she was an insect. "So this is the human," he said. His voice was deep and rumbling. "I thought you would be taller." His friends laughed. Megan felt her cheeks burn, but she kept her voice steady. "Sorry to disappoint you." Kethral leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like metal. "You should not be here, little creature. This academy is for the worthy, not for pets." Megan wanted to say something clever. She wanted to stand up for herself and prove that humans were just as good as anyone else. But the words stuck in her throat. Kethral laughed again and walked away with his friends. That night, met her roommate. Lyris was a Vethkai, a being made of living crystal. Her body was translucent and beautiful, with soft light glowing inside her chest where a human would have a heart. When she moved, she made soft chiming sounds like wind chimes in a breeze. "You are the human," Lyris said. It was not a question. "That's me," Megan replied. She sat down on her bed and looked around the small room. It was clean and simple, with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a window that showed the stars. Lyris tilted her crystalline head. "I have read about your species. You are very young, very fragile. I am curious why the Compact allowed you to attend." "Thanks," Megan said with a bitter smile. "Everyone keeps reminding me how weak humans are. It's really helpful. I did not mean to cause offense." Lyris sat down on her own bed. The crystal made no sound against the mattress. "I am simply stating facts. Humans have only been traveling between stars for a short time. Most species take thousands of years to reach your level. You should be proud of how far you have come." Megan looked at her roommate with new interest. "That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me since I got here." "Give it time," Lyris said. "The others will learn to respect you. Or they will not. Either way, you must focus on your own growth." The next morning was the combat evaluation. All 42 students in Megan's class gathered in a large arena. The floor was covered with soft sand, and weapons of every kind hung on the walls. Instructor Velkith stood in the center waiting. He was a Cytharian, an ancient reptilian species known for producing the greatest warriors in the galaxy. His scales were black as night, and his eyes had vertical pupils like a snake. Old scars crossed his chest and arms. Proof of battle survived. "Today, you will be ranked," Velkith announced. His voice carried across the arena without effort. Your position will determine your place in this academy. Those at the top will receive the best opportunities. Those at the bottom will struggle for scraps. One by one, the students were tested. They fought against training robots, lifted heavy weights, and demonstrated their special abilities. The Tovani students scored highest, their forearms giving them a huge advantage in combat. The Vethkai ranked well because of their psionic powers, their ability to move objects with their minds. Even the Olani, who looked like walking flowers with delicate petals for skin, placed in the middle because of their incredible speed. Then it was Megan's turn. She did her best. She really did. She fought the training robot until it knocked her down. She lifted the weights until her arms screamed with pain. She ran the obstacle course until her lungs burned. When it was over, Velkith read the rankings aloud. "Rank 42 of 42, he said, his eyes finding Megan in the crowd. "The human." The arena filled with laughter. Kethral's voice rose above the others. "Perhaps she can carry our equipment. Humans are good at serving, are they not?" More laughter. Megan stood there, her hands curled into fists, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall. Instructor Velkith raised one clawed hand, and the laughter stopped. "The rankings are set. Training begins tomorrow. Dismissed." The students filed out of the arena. Megan was the last to leave. She walked slowly, her body aching, her pride hurting even more. She found a quiet corner of the campus and sat down on a bench overlooking a garden of alien flowers. The tears came then. She could not stop them. She cried for herself, for her planet, for every human who would ever be looked down upon by the rest of the galaxy. A hand touched her shoulder. Megan looked up and saw Lyris standing there, her crystalline face somehow showing concern. "You did not give up," Lyris said softly. "That is worth something." Megan wiped her eyes. "It's worth last place. Today, perhaps. But tomorrow is another day." Lyris sat down beside her. "I have studied many species. Humans are strange. You are weak, yes, but you are also stubborn. You do not stop trying. That is a kind of strength that cannot be measured." Megan looked at her roommate. "Do you really believe that?" Lyris's inlight pulsed gently. "Ask me again in a year. I suspect you will surprise us all." Megan did not believe her. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark of hope refused to die. 3 months passed at the academy. Megan trained harder than anyone else. She woke up before the suns rose and went to sleep long after they set. Her body grew stronger, but she remained at the bottom of the rankings. The gap between humans and other species was simply too large. Still, she refused to quit. Instructor Velkith noticed her effort. He never said anything kind, but sometimes he gave her small nods of approval. That was enough to keep her going. One morning, the entire class was taken to the center of the campus. There stood a building unlike any other. It was ancient, older than the academy itself, older than the Galactic Compact. The walls were made of stone that seemed to drink in the light. Strange symbols covered every surface. "This is the Forge of Ancients," Velkith announced. "It contains artifacts from civilizations that died before our recorded history began. Today, you will see the most famous of them all." They walked through dark corridors lit by floating orbs of pale blue light. The air smelled old, like dust and forgotten time. Finally, they entered a circular chamber. In the center, on a pedestal of silver metal, sat a hammer. Megan caught her breath. The weapon was beautiful beyond words. The head was made of something that looked like captured starlight, swirling with colors that had no names. The handle was wrapped in dark material that seemed to pull shadows toward it. The hammer looked heavy and light at the same time, dangerous and peaceful. "The Hammer of Vareth," Velkith said. His voice was quiet, almost respectful. created by a species that vanished 10,000 years ago. The Varth were the most advanced civilization ever known. They built wonders that we still cannot understand. The students gathered around the pedestal. Even Kethril seemed impressed, his forearms hanging loose at his sides. The Varth created this hammer as a test, Volkith continued. They placed a gravity lock inside it. The weapon does not simply weigh a lot. It actively resists being moved. It pushes back against anyone who tries to lift it. How heavy is it? Someone asked. Unknown. Our best estimates suggest it would take the power of a starship to move it even slightly. But the Vareth said that weight was not the true barrier. They believed the hammer tested something inside a person. Something in their soul. Has anyone ever lifted it? Lyris asked, her crystal voice ringing in the chamber. No. In 10,000 years, warriors, kings, and champions from every species have tried. All have failed. The hammer has not moved a single inch. Kethril stepped forward. His emerald scales gleamed in the strange light. Then let me be the first. He walked up to the pedestal with the confidence of someone who had never known failure. His four hands wrapped around the handle. He set his feet and pulled. Nothing happened. Kethril's face twisted with effort. His muscles bulged. He pulled harder, putting all his strength into the attempt. A vein stood out on his forehead. His teeth ground together. The hammer did not move. Finally, Kethril let go. He stumbled backward, breathing hard. The gravity lock is strong, he said, trying to hide his embarrassment. Of course it is, Velkith replied. I told you. 10,000 years. No one has ever succeeded. Other students tried. A Torvani female with blue scales and arms like tree trunks. A Vethkai who attempted to lift it with psionic power. An Orlani who moved so fast he was just a blur of petals. One by one, they failed. The hammer sat there, beautiful and unmoved. Human, Kethril called out. He had recovered his arrogance. Why not try? Give us something to laugh about. The class turned to look at Megan. She stood near the back, trying to make herself invisible. I do not think that is a good idea, she said quietly. Come now. Kethril spread all four arms wide. You train so hard every day. Surely you want a chance to prove yourself. Or are humans only good at failing? Laughter filled the chamber. Even some students who had been kind to Megan were smiling. She looked at Instructor Velketh. His face showed nothing. He did not tell her to try. He did not tell her to stay back. Something sparked inside Megan, a feeling she could not name. It was not anger, not pride, not stubbornness. It was deeper than that. It felt like waking up from a long sleep. She walked forward. The students parted to let her through. The chamber fell silent. Everyone watched as the smallest, weakest student in the class approached the most famous artifact in the galaxy. Megan stood before the pedestal. The hammer seemed to glow brighter as she got close. The swirling starlight in its head moved faster. Like it was excited. She reached out her hand. Her fingers touched the handle. It was warm, almost hot. She felt a strange vibration run through her arm and into her chest. It was like the hammer was speaking to her in a language beyond words. Megan rapped, her fingers around the handle, and she lifted. The hammer came up off the pedestal as easily as picking up a cup of water. It weighed nothing in her hands. The starlight in its head exploded with color, bright enough to make everyone shield their eyes. Megan stood there, holding the hammer of Vareth above her head. The silence lasted 5 heartbeats. Then the chamber erupted with noise. Students shouted in shock. Someone screamed. Kethril fell backward and hit the floor, his eyes wide with disbelief. Impossible, Velkith whispered. His scales had gone pale. In all his long life, he had never seen anything like this. This is impossible. Megan looked at the hammer in her hands. She did not understand what was happening. She did not know why she could do what no one else could do. But in that moment, holding the weapon of a dead civilization, she felt something she had not felt since coming to the academy. She felt worthy. "Put it down," Velketh said. His voice shook. "Carefully, please." Megan lowered the hammer back to the pedestal. The instant she let go, its weight returned. The silver metal cracked under the force. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. No one moved. No one spoke. They all stared at Megan like she had grown a second head. Lyris was the first to break the silence. Her crystal voice was filled with wonder. "I told you," she said softly. "I told you that you would surprise us all." Megan looked at her hands. They looked the same as always. Small, pale, weak, but somehow they had done the impossible. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within hours, everyone at the academy knew what Megan had done. Within days, the story had spread to every corner of the Galactic Compact. A human had lifted the hammer of Vareth. A member of the weakest, youngest species in known space had done what warriors and champions had failed to do for 10,000 years. Some believed it. Most did not. It must be a trick, the leaders of the Torvani Empire declared. Humans are clever with machines. They must have disabled the gravity lock somehow. Perhaps the hammer was a fake, suggested the Vethkai Council. A copy placed there to test our faith. But those who had been in the chamber knew the truth. Kethro, who had mocked Megan from the first day, refused to speak about what he had seen. His silence said more than words ever could. 1 week after the incident, Megan was summoned to appear before the Compact Council itself. The council chamber was the largest room she had ever seen. It was shaped like a bowl, with rising tiers of seats surrounding a central platform. Holographic screens floated everywhere, showing the faces of representatives from species too far away to attend in person. 1,000 eyes watched as Megan walked to the platform. The High Chancellor sat at the highest point of the chamber. He was an ancient Vethkai, his crystalline body clouded with age. Cracks ran through his form, signs of a life measured in centuries. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the entire space. "Megan Cole of Earth, you stand before the Compact Council. Tell us what happened in the Forge of Ancients." Megan swallowed hard. Her throat was dry. I lifted the hammer. "We know what you claim to have done. We want to know how." "I do not know how." Megan spread her hands. I just picked it up. It felt light in my hands, like it wanted me to hold it. Whispers swept through the chamber. Representatives leaned toward each other, speaking in languages Megan did not understand. "The hammer of Vareth has not been moved in 10,000 years, the High Chancellor said. The Vareth were the greatest civilization in recorded history. Their technology still surpasses our own. You expect us to believe that a human child did what our mightiest champions could not. I do not expect anything." Megan felt a spark of anger in her chest. "I am telling you what happened. Believe it or not." More whispers. Some representatives looked offended. Others looked curious. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to Admiral Tethra, the Supreme Commander of the Compact Fleet. He was a Cytherian like Instructor Velketh, but older and more scarred. His black scales were marked with the history of 100 battles. "I have seen the recordings from the forge," he said. The hammer moved. "That is not in question. The question is what it means. What are you suggesting?" The High Chancellor asked. "The Vareth left their hammer here for a reason. They were not fools. Perhaps they knew something we do not. Perhaps they were waiting for someone like this human." The chamber erupted with argument. Representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded that the hammer be destroyed. Others insisted that Megan be studied to understand her strange ability. A few suggested darker solutions, their voices cold and threatening. Megan stood alone on the platform, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and felt smaller than she had ever felt in her life. Then Admiral Tethra raised his clawed hand. The shouting slowly died down. "There is a way to test this," he said. The Verith did not leave only the hammer. They left vaults scattered across the galaxy, sealed with the same technology. No one has ever opened them. If this human can access those vaults, it will prove that her connection to the Verith is real. The High Chancellor considered this. And if she cannot, then we will know the hammer incident was a mistake, a malfunction of ancient technology. Tethra's eyes fixed on Megan. Either way, we will have our answer. The council voted. The decision was made. Megan would be sent to one of the Varth vaults under the supervision of Admiral Tethra. If she could open it, she would be recognized as something new and important. If she failed, she would return to the academy as the lowest-ranked student, forever remembered as a lucky accident. That night, Lyris found Megan sitting alone in their room. "You should eat something," the crystal being said. "The journey will be long. I am not hungry." Megan stared at her hands again. She had been staring at them a lot lately. "Lyris, what if I cannot do it? What if the hammer was just a mistake?" Lyris sat down beside her. Her inner light pulsed softly. "Do you believe it was a mistake?" Megan thought about the moment she had touched the hammer, the warmth of the handle, the strange feeling of connection, the sense that the weapon had been waiting for her. "No," she admitted. "It felt right. It felt like coming home." Then trust that feeling. The Verith were wise. They did not create the hammer to test physical strength. They created it to test something deeper, something inside a person that cannot be measured or weighed. What if I do not have that thing? What if I am just a weak, ordinary human? Lyris made a sound like crystal bells laughing. "Megan, you have never been ordinary. You came to a school where everyone told you that you did not belong. You trained harder than anyone else. You refused to give up even when you were ranked last. That is not ordinary. That is extraordinary." Megan looked at her roommate. In the months they had lived together, Lyris had become her only real friend at the academy. The crystal being had never laughed at her or made her feel small. "Thank you," Megan said. "Do not thank me. Prove me right." Lyris stood up. "Now eat something. You will need your strength for whatever comes next." Megan smiled for the first time in days. She picked up her food and began to eat. 3 days later, she boarded a ship bound for a volcanic world at the edge of known space. The vault of the Verith awaited, and with it, the answers to questions she did not yet know how to ask. The planet was called Pyrus 9, and it was a world of fire. Megan pressed her face against the window of Admiral Tethra's flagship as they descended through the atmosphere. Below, rivers of molten rock carved bright orange lines across a landscape of black stone. Volcanoes rose like mountains, their peaks glowing red against the dark sky. The air was filled with ash and smoke. "A beautiful world in its own way," Admiral Tethra said. He stood beside her, his scarred scales reflecting the firelight from below. The Verith chose their vault locations with care. Each one presents a different challenge. "And the challenge here is not burning to death?" Megan asked. The old admiral made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Among other things, the vault is buried beneath a lake of molten rock. Our ships can get us close, but the final approach must be made on foot." Megan looked at the hellish landscape below. "On foot, through lava. We have protective suits. You will be safe." Tethra paused. Relatively safe. The ship landed on a platform of cooled volcanic rock. A team was already waiting for them. Megan recognized 2 faces among the group. Kethral stood near the front, his emerald scales dulled by the ash in the air. His family had demanded that he be given a chance to prove himself. If Megan failed to open the vault, he would be there to witness it. And if she succeeded, his family wanted to claim some of the glory for the Tovani Empire. Beside him stood Lyris, her crystal body glowing softly in the dim light. She had volunteered to come as a scientific observer. But Megan knew the real reason. Lyris was her friend, and friends did not let friends face ancient alien vaults alone. "Are you ready?" Lyris asked as Megan approached. "No," Megan admitted, "but I do not think I will ever be ready for something like this." The team put on their protective suits. The material was thick and heavy, with helmets that sealed against the toxic air. Megan felt clumsy inside hers, like a child wearing adult clothes. They began the walk toward the vault, the ground beneath. Their feet was warm, even through the protective boots. Steam rose from cracks in the rock. The air shimmered with heat. Megan's suit worked hard to keep her cool, but sweat still ran down her back. After an hour of walking, they reached the edge of the molten lake. The vault entrance was visible on the other side, a massive door set into a cliff face. The door was made of the same strange metal as the hammer, covered with symbols that seemed to glow with inner light. "How do we get across?" Megan asked. Admiral Tethra pointed. A narrow bridge of black stone stretched across the lake. It looked ancient and fragile. Molten rock flowed beneath it, so bright it hurt to look at. "One at a time," the Admiral said. "The bridge will not hold more than one person." Kethral went first. His forearms helped him balance as he crossed the narrow span. The bridge creaked and groaned but held. He reached the other side and turned to watch the others. Lyris went next. Her crystal body was lighter than most species, and she crossed easily, her form chiming softly with each step. Then it was Megan's turn. She stepped onto the bridge. The stone was hot beneath her feet. She could feel the heat through her boots, through her suit, into her bones. The molten rock below glowed like a hungry eye. Halfway across, the bridge began to crack. Megan heard the sound first. A snapping, breaking noise that came from deep within the stone. She looked down and saw a line of fractures spreading beneath her feet. "Run!" Admiral Tethra shouted from behind her. Megan ran. Her legs pumped. Her lungs burned. The bridge crumbled behind her, pieces falling into the molten rock with hissing sounds. She leaped a final few feet and landed hard on solid ground. She lay there for a moment, breathing hard, her heart pounding in her chest. Kethral stood over her. For a moment, she thought he would mock her. Instead, he reached down with one of his 4 hands and helped her up. "Not bad," he said quietly. "For a human." It was the closest thing to respect he had ever shown her. The vault door loomed above them. Up close, the symbols carved into its surface seemed to move. They shifted and changed like living things, forming patterns that made Megan's eyes water. Admiral Tethra's voice came through her helmet radio. He was still on the other side of the lake, watching through long-range cameras. "The vault has been sealed for 10,000 years. Every attempt to open it has failed. Explosives, cutting tools, psionic force. Nothing has worked." Kethral stepped forward. His face was determined. "Let me try first." He placed all 4 hands against the door and pushed. His muscles strained. His teeth ground together. Nothing happened. He stepped back, breathing hard. "It will not move." Lyris tried next. She focused her psionic abilities, gathering energy until her crystal body blazed with light. She directed that energy at the door, trying to phase through it or force it open. The door rejected her. The energy bounced back and sent her flying across the ground. Her crystal form made a terrible cracking sound as she landed. Megan rushed to her side. "Lyris, are you okay?" "I will heal," Lyris said weakly. The door is protected by something I do not understand. Something that pushes back against any force. Megan helped her friend stand, then turned to face the vault door. It waited there, ancient and patient, covered with symbols that seemed to watch her. She walked toward it with each step. She felt that strange feeling again. The same warmth she had felt when touching the hammer. The sense of connection, of recognition. Like the door knew her. Like it had been waiting for her. She reached out and pressed her palm against the metal. The symbols stopped moving. The light within them grew brighter. A deep humming sound filled the air, growing louder and louder until Megan felt it in her chest. Then the door began to open. It swung inward slowly, revealing darkness beyond. A rush of cool air came from inside, smelling of age and secrets. Catherall stood frozen, his mouth hanging open. Even through the radio, Megan could hear Admiral Tethra SMA's silence. How? Catherall whispered. Megan looked at her hand, then at the open door. I do not know, but I think we are about to find out. She stepped into the vault. The darkness swallowed her. Then lights began to appear, floating orbs like the ones in the Forge of Ancients. They revealed a vast chamber filled with objects Megan could not identify. Weapons, tools, machines that seemed to be made of pure light. And at the center of it all, a holographic figure flickered to life. It showed a being that looked almost human. Tall and graceful, with skin like pale gold and eyes that contained galaxies. The figure smiled at Megan, and when it spoke, the words appeared directly in her mind. Welcome, Inheritor. We have waited so long for you. The holographic figure stood before Megan like a ghost from a forgotten age. Its form shifted and changed, sometimes looking solid, sometimes fading into mist. But its eyes remained constant, two pools of swirling starlight that seemed to see right through her. Who are you? Megan asked. Her voice echoed in the vast chamber. I am a memory, the figure replied. Its voice was gentle, like a parent speaking to a beloved child. A recording left by my people 10,000 years ago. We called ourselves the Varth. You have found the words for us in your own language. Behind Megan, Catherall and Lyris had entered the vault. They stood frozen, watching the hologram with wonder and fear. None of them had ever seen Vareth technology work like this. Why can I open your doors? Megan asked. Why could I lift your hammer? I am just a human, the weakest species in the galaxy. The hologram smiled. It was a sad smile, full of ancient knowledge and older regrets. That is exactly why. Let me show you. The air around them changed. Suddenly, Megan was no longer standing in the vault. She was floating in space, watching a star system she did not recognize. Planets orbited a golden sun. Ships moved between them, beautiful vessels that looked like they were grown rather than built. This was our home, the hologram said, appearing beside her. 10,000 years ago, the Vareth controlled half the galaxy. We were powerful beyond imagination. We had conquered death, disease, and want. Our technology could reshape reality itself. The vision changed. Now the planets were darker. The ships moved more slowly. The golden sun seemed tired. But we lost something, the hologram continued. In gaining everything, we forgot what it meant to struggle. We became lazy, bored. Our people stopped having children because they saw no point in new life. Our scientists stopped discovering because there was nothing left to find. We were dying, not from war or plague, but from a sickness of the soul. Megan watched as the Varus civilization crumbled. Cities emptied. Ships stopped flying. One by one, the lights went out. We knew the end was coming. But before we faded away, we wanted to leave something behind. A gift for whoever came after us. The hologram turned to face Megan directly. So we looked into the future. You can see the future? Not see. Predict. Our mathematics could calculate probability with near-perfect accuracy. We could not tell exactly what would happen, but we could see the shapes of things to come. The rise of new civilizations, the formation of your galactic compact, and eventually, the emergence of a young species on a small blue planet. The vision shifted again. Now Megan was looking at Earth, but it was an Earth from long ago, before humans had built cities or invented writing. Small groups of early humans huddled around fires, fighting to survive against predators, disease, and starvation. "Your world is harsh," the hologram said. "One of the harshest in the galaxy. You call them death worlds, planets that should not be able to support intelligent life. The gravity is strong. The weather is violent. Predators hunt you. Diseases attack you. Everything on your planet seems designed to kill." "I know," Megan said softly. "Other species are always telling us how fragile we are. They are wrong." The hologram's voice became intense. "Do you understand what it means to evolve on such a world? To survive, your ancestors had to become something special. They developed endurance that other species cannot match. They created minds that could adapt to any situation. They built communities that supported each other through impossible hardships. The vision showed humans advancing through history, building shelters, then villages, then cities, inventing tools, then machines, then rockets, reaching for the stars. Other species were shaped by their environments," the hologram said. "Humans shaped themselves. You became whatever you needed to become. When you were weak, you created tools. When you were alone, you built societies. When death came for you, you found ways to heal. That is what we saw in you. That is why we chose you." Megan felt tears running down her face. She had spent her whole life being told that humans were inferior, too young, too weak, too primitive. Now this ancient being was telling her that those very weaknesses were actually strengths. "The hammer tests the soul," the hologram continued. "It looks for a specific quality. We called it the fire that refuses to die. The spark that keeps burning no matter how dark the night becomes. Your species has that spark. You carry it in your blood, in your bones, in your very DNA. But why me?" Megan asked. "There are billions of humans. Why can I lift the hammer when others might not be able to? All humans carry the spark, but some carry it brighter than others." The hologram reached out and touched Megan's chest, right over her heart. She felt warmth spread through her body. "You, Megan Cole, have faced rejection and cruelty since you came to this academy. You were told you did not belong. You were ranked last and mocked for it. Lesser beings would have given up. You did not. You kept fighting. You kept trying. You proved yourself worthy not despite your weakness, but because of how you faced it." The vision faded. They were back in the vault. "The contents of this chamber now belong to you," the hologram said, "and through you to humanity. Ships, weapons, knowledge that the galaxy has forgotten. Use them well. Your people have a long road ahead. The compact will not accept you easily, but in time, you will show them what we saw. You will teach them that true strength comes not from size or power, but from the will to keep going when everything tells you to stop." The hologram began to fade. "Wait," Megan called out. "I have more questions." "I know, and you will find the answers as you grow." The Beret figure smiled one last time. "Goodbye, inheritor. Make us proud." Then it was gone. Megan stood in silence, surrounded by the treasures of a dead civilization. Kethril and Lyris approached slowly. "I heard everything," Lyris said softly. "I knew humans were special, but I never imagined." Even Kethril looked different. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. In its place was something that might have been respect. "I was wrong about you," he said. "About all humans. I apologize." Megan nodded. Thank you. They returned to the flagship and then to the academy. The council met again, and this time there was no argument. Megan was given command of a ship from the vault, a beautiful vessel that responded to human neural patterns and nothing else. She named it the Endurance, after a quality that the Varth had seen in her species. On her last night at the academy, Megan stood on the observation deck with Lyris. The stars stretched out before them, countless points of light representing worlds they had never seen. "Are you scared?" Lyris asked. "Yes," Megan admitted, "but I am also excited. The Vareth believed in us. They left their legacy for us. Now it is our job to prove they were right." "You already have," Lyris said. "Every time you got up after being knocked down. Every time you kept trying when others would have quit. That is what the hammer tested. That is what made you worthy." Megan smiled. She thought about her family back on Earth, about the small town where she had grown up. She thought about every human who had ever been told they were not good enough. "The galaxy has spent 10,000 years waiting for us," she said. "They just did not know it yet." She boarded the Endurance and set course for the unknown. Behind her, the academy grew smaller and smaller until it was just another light among the stars. Ahead of her lay the future. And whatever challenges it held, Megan knew one thing for certain. Humanity was ready to answer.